If austerity has so badly failed, in her words, why is the British economy now the fastest growing in the G7 and we've created more jobs than the whole of Europe combined?
It's failed because all of the targets set by George Osborne have not been met. Debt is not falling as a share of GDP as planned. The current account is not back in the black as planned. The borrowing for this year is not 20 billion, it's 75 billion, almost four times as much.
But the economy is doing well. We're growing fast and we've created lots of jobs. So why does that be filed under F for failure?
Well, F for failure precisely because he failed to meet any of the targets he set himself. That's the key point about this. And the thing that's disturbing is with a huge amount of austerity to come, another 30 billion voted for 2 weeks ago, we can look forward to more pain, particularly for those at the bottom 10% have suffered incredibly under this austerity project.
Now, if you were to end austerity, you would stop the cuts in public spending and you would probably even increase public spending. You could only do that either by raising taxes or borrowing or both. What would it be?
Well, if you look at the forecasts, a very modest increase in public expenditure compared to the cuts which are planned by the Conservative government still sees debt falling as a share of GDP in 2 years' time.
But would you pay for that by borrowing or more taxes?
Andrew, it sees a longer trajectory for deficit consolidation. But if you do that under a medium-term approach, prudent decision-making, with a view to balanced budgets in the medium term, you have a credible position.
Would you pay for it by raising taxes or raising borrowing?
Andrew, the position I've laid out is very clear. The trajectory of deficit consolidation is a little longer, but you reduce all the pain, you keep consumption in the economy, you have investment, which we desperately need, and of course, more importantly, you have flexibility to deal with external shocks to the economy.
Can you name, at the moment, a European Union economy with a higher deficit than ours?
No, and I want to see the deficit brought under control.
But you would increase the deficit, at least in the medium term, wouldn't you?
Andrew, we've had a programme under this Conservative government which said the deficit would be wiped out by now.
Yes, I'm not asking about them. I'm asking what you would do to change it. Now, can you name any European economy? Can you name any European economy that's increasing its deficit?
We've laid out what we would do to rebalance the economy, to remove the deficit.
What's the answer to my question?
Well, the answer to your question is you take a medium-term approach to deficit
which would involve increasing the deficit in the medium term, correct?
Well, you take prudent decisions based on the actuality at the time. You have the flexibility to deal with
So can you name any European economy that's currently increasing its deficit as you propose?
No, and we've said, Andrew, we want to see the deficit reduced.
But you would increase it in the short run, wouldn't you?
We want to see the economy in balance. There may be a difference between what the Tories have planned, which is deep austerity cuts, and the proposals we have, but they're sensible medium-term approaches in order to rebalance the economy, get the deficit properly under control, and have the credibility of a plan which actually works, unlike the one we have at the moment.
So you accept that you would increase a deficit which is already the highest in the EU, correct?
Andrew, I've said we want to see the deficit brought down.
No, but I'm asking in the next couple of years, would you increase it or wouldn't you? Or would you increase taxes? These are simple questions. Why won't you answer them?
Well, I am answering. You are talking about what we would do in relation to the Tory plan. The Tory plan is perhaps for £75 billion more of austerity at a ratio of 9-to-1 cuts to tax rises, punishing the poorest in society. We argue that is simply wrong.
If you're so short of cash and austerity is so bad in Scotland, why did you underspend last year by almost £500 million?
Well, that wasn't an underspend, Andrew. Most of that money was not spending over which the Scottish Government had any discretion.
Yes, it was. There was at least 165 million in the education department alone. And you didn't spend that. Why didn't you spend that?
Andrew, the 400 million figure is one over which the Scottish Government didn't have discretion. The figure over which the Scottish Government had discretion was substantially lower.
Well, let's take the 165 million in education, which you have total discretion over. Teachers have been in decline while you've been in power. Why didn't you spend that 165 million to create 4,000 new teachers?
Well, what the Scottish Government have just announced is a package of money to actually encourage councils to employ new teachers. That's exactly what the money's there for.
If you're so short of cash and austerity is so bad, why didn't you spend the money when you had it?
Well, Andrew, if you look at what has been spent, if you look at where we are in terms of education, a record number of kids in full-time college places, record number of kids at universities, 25,000 apprenticeships starting every year, we're doing all the right things with the budget we had.
Oh, so you've got enough money then?
we're doing all the right things with the
So
budget
you haven't
we
got
have.
austerity, you've got enough
Andrew,
money.
we do have austerity. We've seen people £2,500 on average worse off.
So why
because of the
didn't you spend
austerity
the money you had?
measures
Because
which
can
have
I
come.
point out that when Labour ran Holyrood, and they ran overspends as well, the Scottish Nationalists criticised them and said this would never happen again. You wouldn't allow this kind of underspending, and that's exactly what you... Indeed, the underspending is bigger than it was under Labour.
No, it isn't. Absolutely.
450
absolutely not.
million.
It's not 450 million, Andrew. Most of that was money over which the Scottish Government didn't have any discretion. There were years in the past when Labour and the Liberals were in charge when they were handing back close to £1 billion a year to London. That is not the case today.